Hi, I am Deanna from Key2 Music, and this video is going to go over an introduction to string bending. So string bending is a very cool guitar technique. You're going to hear it all the time in all this kind of thing. Sounds great. So there are a couple of things to know though when you are starting to get into string bends. You will need to change your position a little bit, and we're going to go over that just now. So first of all, what's happening is you're changing the pitch of the note by applying pressure on the string and stretching it a little bit. So it's like as if you were pulling a rubber band and twanging it, and the rubber band is getting a bit thinner. So you are exerting quite a lot of pressure on it. But what you don't want to do is have that coming from your fingers. So you don't want to be pushing with your fingers and seeing the fleshy part of your finger come away from the nail. You're actually going to be positioning your fingers along the string where you're going to bend the note, and you're going to be turning your hand. So it's almost as if you've got a C shape with your left hand, and your fingers aren't moving like that by themselves. They're pushing against the string because your whole hand is turning. So it's more that kind of movement than it is this kind of thing. We don't want any of that. So to begin with, it's a little bit knacky, but make sure you check out that distinction carefully to begin with. I've got an electric guitar here with tens on. Tens just means the thickness of the strings. I would suggest not trying it on an acoustic guitar for the first time, because they tend to have thicker strings and it's going to be more pressure on your hands. Of course, you can definitely build up strength in your fingers and do string bends on acoustic guitars too, but if this is the first time that you're exploring it, probably great to borrow an electric guitar. There are loads here. Okay, so what you're going to do, the other distinction with this hand position, when we're playing chords, you'll hear me talk a lot about having your thumb down the back of the neck like that. For the bending, you might be adjusting that a little bit so that you can brace and get this turning thing. And that's fine, you know, it's legitimate. We don't want to always be doing this, but for string bending, you can make an adjustment to allow you to brace your hand. So to have a go, it's easy to start a little bit further up the neck. So if you, for example, assuming you've got an electric guitar and there's a bit of space up here, you go to the 10th fret and you're going to line up your 3 fingers against the first string, and you're going to think about that sort of C shape and maybe adjust your thumb position behind the neck, and you're going to pick the note and you're going to turn that whole hand, and that's going to change the pitch. So have a go at doing that first. If it's the first time you've done that, you will be much more likely to go like this with your fingers, and that might be sore. So you really just want to be very kind of careful that you are not just doing that with your fingers. So you're lining them up against the string, adjusting hand position as necessary. So you've got this sort of C shape going on, and pick and twist. When you feel like you're starting to get the movement, move it around a little bit. So, and you'll hear a good pitch change. So when you're first starting to do it, you won't necessarily have an optimal amount of control over the note. That's going to come with practice. So a really good exercise to start out with that is to, once you've got the kind of the movement, is to pick a note, then go to the fret below and bend into the note. Oops, that was a bit high. Because then your ear has got a reference of what note you're aiming for, and you want those 2 notes to be the same. So if you are still struggling with the movement, don't worry about getting used to pick accuracy. Just kind of start reviewing that idea of the strings lining up and turning the whole wrist. And this meaty part of your palm is going to be coming up from sideways on upwards. If you've got that movement and you're getting the pitch change and you're not doing that with your fingers, then you can move on to starting to train your accuracy of pitch. So move down a few frets and you're going to go, let's say you're going to pick fret 7 and then you're going to move down to fret 6 and you're going to bend into the same note. And then you're going to go do the same thing 1 fret up. And you're going to do the same thing 1 fret up. And you're going to do the same thing 1 fret up. And then you go back down again. That is a really good way of training your hands for how much pressure and force they need to get to the next pitch. You'll notice that as you get further up the guitar, you don't need as much twist to create the change in pitch. So it's possibly no coincidence that you see lots of guitar solos like all this kind of thing up here, because those note bends are sort of easier to carry out there. If you've got this far, and this is all pretty good and pretty well nailed, you can increase the amount of precision by either using a guitar tuner and switching it on, and then bending into the note and making sure on the little dial that it's accurate. You will need to have the chromatic selected to give you a note, and that, then you'll be able to really see that what you're hearing is accurate. So that is an introduction or a recap of the right technique for string bending. Main thing to remember is not pushing with your fingers, but twisting with your wrist and hand, and it's going to be a lot easier to do that. Even if it feels quite vague to begin with, you don't have to spend very long on this before you become much more accurate, and it sounds very cool. So enjoy string bending.